The romanticization of problematic content. When media you love is ruined by social misconduct. What happens when cancel culture intersects with properties you love? When your fondness of something is challenged by your own morals and you're forced to reckon with. Really? Really? Right now? God, you people are broken. This is what I get for living in Zuckerberg's America. Okay, this video is gonna get a little messy. Today we're diving deep into the depths of canceled public figures. I'm talking worst of the worst, from general bigotry to actual crimes and everything in between. So we're gonna be talking about the art of J.K. Rowling, Kanye West, Shane Dawson, and of course, the 2005 CBS original comedy How I Met Your Mother, starring Josh Radnor as Ted Mosby, a head-over-heels romantic hell-bent on finding the mother of his children, Barney Stinson, the wacky womanizer with a secret, and Marshall Erickson, the good guy lawyer longing for a simple life of I live in a prison of my own mind. Okay, let's talk about problematic content. I'm sure this will go well for me. This video is a landmine. For the purposes of this video, I'm defining problematic content as a work, but more specifically a creator who has been outed for some kind of social or interpersonal offense that either doesn't mesh with their public persona or doesn't resonate with a core audience. I need you to understand, I'm not talking about figures like Top G and, believe it or not, Mia Cole fan Andrew Tate. Because he's Andrew Tate.
Have you heard of that girl, Mia Cole?
Yeah, I know Mia.
I love her, man.
I didn't think you'd like her.
Yeah, she's so cool.
Thank you, Andy. No Andrew Tate fan was like horrified to find out he's a misogynist. Though I'm sure for like the one Andy fan out there, this is probably really devastating to hear. What I'm interested in is what happens after something is exposed. The gossip, the juice. The effect it has on the property, persona, or art, and most importantly, what the general public thinks about it. And eventually, by the end of this godforsaken video, we will be able to tie every loose thread into a neat little bow and explain how these problematic figures get romanticized. I love his videos, but I shouldn't. I guess he's my problematic fave. The past. It's something you will never get back, no matter how hard you try. With each second that goes by, it gets farther and farther away from us, floating ever presently in each and every passing moment. Which is why there's something so beautiful that happens when the past gets preserved. When something fades but never quite dies. When something withers but never perishes. A record of what once was. An intricate tapestry devoid of meaning without its connecting pieces. Context is lost and details may elude you, but never will it truly fade. This is an analogy for Twitter. Canceling! God, this is gonna be a nightmare. I want it to be known that this is not a takedown video. Enough has been said about these four, as well as the many others I'm gonna bring up in this video. However, when criticism is warranted, I will not hesitate to give my opinion as a resident on this hell site. Welcome to the Mia Cole YouTube channel. This is about to get dramatic as fuck. So, J.K. Rowling. I'm kidding, I'll spare you from that. For now, to understand the romanticization of problematic content, we must first understand a core element of its existence. Canceling. If you're anything like me, you kind of just automatically shut down the second anybody mentions the phrase cancel culture. What is this shit? Cause like, I'm so tired of hearing about it. Like, shut up, dude. I'm sorry some people just don't like your podcast, but nobody is silencing you. You're literally screaming. But to be fair, there's more to it than that, and I want to lend some genuine good faith to the issue, so I'll try to present this in a fair and as nuanced way as I possibly can. Or everyone will just get mad at me. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. So, canceling. What is it? Where is it? How is it? Is the cancel culture in the room with us right now? So cancel culture, to put it in the most basic of terms, means nothing. The phrase doesn't mean shit. It has been bastardized into oblivion. It quite literally has no meaning. So what is cancel culture? Cancel culture is when people are mad at you on Twitter. Cancel culture is when you lose your entire career over a tweet. Cancel culture is when you're finally outed as an abusive person of power who's gotten away with it for far too long. Cancel culture is when the queen dies. Like I said, it means nothing. However, a popular and more optimistic view of the issue is that cancel culture is when a subject says or contributes to or condones an action or ideology that is deemed morally reprehensible. God, I talk like a fucking nerd. When someone does something bad and mob justice ensues. Now, canceling is this really convoluted thing, and it has pros and cons to it. It is most utilized by marginalized people to get their voices heard and attempts to hold someone accountable for their actions in a world where powerful people typically get to do whatever they want. This is why canceling is often associated with left-wing beliefs, even though a lot of culture war issues on the right could easily be described under it.
Bud Light.
Why does my beer have pronouns? I'm sticking it to the woke mob by doing consumerism. What I'm trying to say is, this is a very topical video for us and society at large. So I'm kind of a hero in that regard. So, is canceling effective? On one hand, no. There's this popular saying, you're only ever really as canceled as your next project. As if someone is really talented and people genuinely love what they do, it's gonna be much harder to boycott or kick to the curb a problematic figure. Like Jason Derulo. I wish I was as talented as Jason Derulo. But on the other hand, yes. As we've seen time and time again, after controversy passes, there truly is a real effect on people. YouTubers' views plummet, actors get less work, and children's book authors change their name to write about hate fantasies of marginalized people who criticize them on Twitter, murdering people. An interesting career pivot, to say the least. So obviously there's some nuance here, and I know you're on youtube.com, so you hear the word nuance and your brain automatically shuts down, so I know. Fine, I'll give you what you want. So those who are more likely to be affected by cancel culture are normal everyday people, those with a small following, or a disinterested audience. Holding people accountable for their actions is generally seen as a positive thing, as society functions better when powerful people at the top are not actively hurting or exploiting those around them. However, occasionally this power may go too far and overcorrect by turning normal discourse into vitriolic hate mobs. Eyes over here. And the line between these two groups can often be blurred as they overlap in intention and intensity. And it's important to keep in mind that sometimes people say hurtful things unintentionally, and more serious discourse might be better reserved for those who purposely make it their mission to hurt specific groups of people. Good job, everyone. We made it through. See, I knew you could do it. I'm so proud of you. Come here. Good job. So that begs the question, if the outcome of being canceled varies from situation to situation, who's more likely to come back successfully after a major controversy? Well, let's start with the obvious. Comedians, politicians, and the Paul brothers. Those three groups are pretty much uncancelable. You can try as hard as you want. Hell, they can try as hard as they want. It doesn't matter. They'll always come back. Yeah. They always wiggle their way back in. To put it more simply, it depends on the offense and also those whose audience demographics are more likely to be forgiving. If you're an edgy internet personality and you make a joke that crosses even way over the line and you attempt to come back afterwards, as long as your next project is good, you'll probably be fine. However, if your audience is more progressive leaning and some past racist or homophobic comments come out, it's less likely you'll be invited back, as it's more likely you've done direct harm to them. Except for some very interesting cases. I'm trying to keep my head attached to my body. Now, this doesn't mean free speech is dead or the sanctity of the First Amendment has been destroyed by gender pronouns or whatever. It just means your outward persona has been damaged and people are more likely to think of you as someone who conned your way into an audience. And like, same. You're watching a Mia Cole video right now? Why?
Essentially, it's all about audience expectations. If you teach your audience to accept moral absolutism from you, if you view yourself as an arbiter of moral reason and pass judgment onto others, they will abandon you for even the slightest transgression. You need to make it clear to your audience that you are human, you're fallible, and mistakes may happen. And they should expect that from you, and hopefully lend you good faith, and not assume malice instantly.
And I know, making a video like this is not a great look, kind of sets me up to be in that position, so here's my promise to you. By the end of this video, I will confess 3 sins of my past, each one juicier than the last, so you can't expect shit from me. You see, the past does a funny thing, where it always seems to come back.
Today, I have eaten a sandwich.
Yeah, and you're also not fucking special. So now is where we need to address the first of many elephants in the room. When talking about cancel culture, I feel like we tend to mythologize it a little bit, you know, the tale of the great mob that attacks the noble protagonist. When examining cancel culture, it's really easy to focus on its more pernicious aspects, and while there's definitely some valid criticism to be had there, there's also lots of other examples where it gets something right. You see, there are 2 distinct kinds of misconduct, words and actions. By mythologizing canceling, we tend to think of it solely as the former. You know, bad tweets, shitty jokes. But the thing is, people aren't just canceled for bad tweets and shitty jokes. It's also when they commit acts of violence, essay, and abuse. This is really serious stuff, and when people are accused of such acts, it should be discussed. And that's where cancel culture comes in. And I hate to even call it cancel culture because of the way we tend to use that phrase. It turns these serious situations into drama. And I can't emphasize this enough. Abuse is not drama. Abuse is not discourse, and abuse is not a Twitter moment. Incidentally, abuse is also not conflict.
You could even say that conflict is not abuse.
Is a book by Sarah Schulman, and a controversial book at that. And also one that I did in fact read. Guys, not to brag, but like, I read a book. This was the first book I read in over 5 years. I'm 18 and I haven't read a book in 5 years. The American educational system is not failing, it just simply failed. To prove that I read it, here's a quote.
We have been excluded, shunned, imprisoned and murdered for knowing or believing that desire is reciprocated. Trans women often lose their lives expressly because they were desired.
Very interesting stuff. Hey, was that J.K. Rowling? Part J.K. Rowling. So J.K. Rowling is the author of the Harry Potter books, blah, 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 blah. I'm sure you've heard the news. Although if you've heard anything from her in the last few years, it's because she's being canceled on Twitter. I'm not here to rehash anything, but I'll at least give some context for those who don't know, just before we talk about her art. Essentially, in recent years, she's kind of fallen down this like transphobic rabbit hole. Me personally, not the biggest fan of transphobia. Very big into bodily autonomy, which is weird because I think she is too. Strange. So like, not to white knight or anything for trans people, but I do kind of view transphobia, at least in the way it manifests itself online, as like a mental illness, just because of like the way it consumes its victims. I know I'm just doing so much virtue signaling right now. If you've ever seen the people who genuinely fall down the rabbit hole, it's kind of insane. Like their whole life kind of starts revolving around their hate for this group of people. It's definitely a fascinating tailspin to watch. I highly recommend it if you hate yourself. People who feel this way tend to overcorrect in a number of different ways, such as becoming a TERF or categorizing men into different categories based on their manliness, but more importantly, wolf. The Omegaverse ruined a whole generation of men, and here's why. Tell me you would not watch the shit out of that video essay. You would watch the shit out of that video essay.
Nothing says humble like a bulleted list of your perceived good qualities.
So J.K. Rowling, she's fallen down the rabbit hole, getting more and more aggressive in her attacks, and it's honestly just really sad to watch. So a lot of fans of her work were affected by her hatred. We're gonna talk about the idea of separating the art from the artist like much later on, but regardless of how you feel about that now, I would encourage you to just think and just put yourself in the shoes of these people. Like, imagine your favorite author just like openly hates you. Like, if Sarah Schulman tweeted tomorrow that she hates pretentious YouTubers who think they're artists, I'd be crushed. So Rowling is kind of the perfect textbook case for this book.
The conflation of conflict with abuse and the overstatement of harm as a justification for cruelty.
I mean, that doesn't get any clearer than that. As Schulman states in the book,
while unrecovered trauma is so often a prison of inflexibility, some people do have choices about how to respond.
Choices indeed. So in the case of JK, it's clear that her actions have been enough to change people's relationship with her art. But if you recall the title of this video, you know it gets worse. You see, Rowling is a good example of where people draw their personal line, as there have just been so many instances in the last few years that if you were affected by her messaging in any way, you're out now. And thus the line has been drawn. Until Wizard Game came out. This is where art and artist intersect. For the longest time in this ongoing controversy, the effect on the art had been relatively unscathed, as those who know of JK know of her through her work. They've already read the books or seen the movies. It's all in the past. But the past does this really funny thing. And suddenly there was new content, perhaps to romanticize. Wizard Game TM is a video game with wizards in it, and people absolutely lost their goddamn minds. Wizards in video games? I've never heard of such a thing. If you weren't on Twitter at the time, you don't even know how bad it got. The artist was deemed problematic, so the art became contentious, so those who enjoyed the art became ostracized. So they started consuming it silently. And when people start consuming media in secrecy, it breeds attachment. You see, the thing about romanticizing problematic content is that it only ever really disappoints, especially if you're embarrassed for your love of something. You're seen as siding with the bad guy, and it feels like you're ignoring the plight of people hurt by them. It's a weird predicament. And in order to distance yourself from that weird feeling, say it with me, some level of cognitive dissonance is needed. A great example would just be to lean into it, to romanticize cancel culture itself. And you can tweet, and you can bemoan, and you can wear your "This Witch Doesn't Burn" shirt all you want. But the past always comes back to you. And romanticizing cancel culture won't magically put you on the right side of history. So by now, I hope I've proven my good faith, because unfortunately, I have more thoughts. When will YouTubers learn to shut the fuck up?
Hello?
Hey, Joe Rogan. It's me, Mia.
Mia, oh my God, hi. I've been talking about you nonstop on my podcast.
I know you have. I really appreciate it.
Could you maybe stop?
Shut up, bitch. Yeah, anyway, I wanted to tell you that I've been noticing a really troubling trend on Twitter.
Yeah, me too, Joe. It's a nightmare on there.
You're telling me. Did you know people have been deep faking my voice on there?
Really? God. Who would do that?
Some sick motherfuckers, that's who. But anyway, I wanted to tell you that...
Oh, shit. You know what, Joe? I gotta get going. I gotta get to the beach to cut back to another dramatic monologue.
Oh, man, you know what? That's totally understandable. It really gives the videos a unique touch that I find myself really appreciating.
Okay, gotta go. Bye. So, here's the thing about quality. It's absolute. It's inescapable. It's cold and uncaring, but in a beautiful way. Quality is quality is quality. It's an immovable object. So that's where the question lies. And keep this in the back of your mind. Is it ever wrong to enjoy greatness? So, yikes. One of the driving factors behind making this video was a sentiment I noticed on Twitter. Guys, I really need to get off Twitter. It just keeps giving me video ideas. If you missed the controversy, basically I did a class trader by subscribing to the Mr. Beast paywall Twitter, and the woke mob came after me. So when a creator of some sort who people have a strong attachment to is outed as a problematic person, something very interesting happens. It's a feeling I can only really describe as parasocial betrayal. The feeling of deep disappointment that some feel when their faves are outed as problematic. It's stronger than just the general disappointment that comes along with somebody doing something morally reprehensible, and it's registered as if a friend hurt you. Parasocial betrayal. It sucks. I get it. John Mulaney is a very interesting case study for this, as he's a mainstream comedian with broad appeal. However, he perhaps unintentionally cultivated an audience that's more queer and left-leaning, most likely by being one of the very few comedians seen as safe by certain people in those groups. So when he came under fire for publicly associating with Dave Chappelle, who famously has some opinions on trans people, John's audience felt hurt. God, why does every single celebrity feel the need to say something about this group? Like, who's out here saying, you know what, this gender stuff is getting out of control. I wonder what Paul Stanley thinks about this. They don't give a shit. Paul, they don't give a shit. You often see people referring to it along the lines of, no, not him. I thought he was safe. I trusted him. That's interesting, right? Now, this really didn't seem to affect him too much, as I'm sure he had other things to worry about, but John actually addressed his newly changed persona in his most recent comedy special, which came out while I was writing this. Because I've been writing it forever. It's been 3 months. It's been 3 goddamn months. The special was really good. He's actually pretty aware of how people see him now. But since the closest emotional relation to this newfound mix of complicated feelings is betrayal, people don't lash out in an upward social structure. They express these feelings outwardly and personally. However, they also take the art into account. And this is where the problem lies. Those who are hurt others. And when you feel parasocially betrayed, it feels natural to insult the perpetrator back. They don't know you, and they most likely never will. Thus, you feel the need to insult, but it has to be in a shareable way because we're all being commodified by social media and blah, 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 blah. And the best way to insult somebody in a shareable fashion is to insult the art. And so... this is wrong. God, I'm really white knighting for a lot of rich white guys right now. I'm sure this will go well for me. I'm like the Joan of Arc of YouTube. You'll burn me now, but you'll see I'm right. Anecdotally, I often see people who feel betrayed by powerful figures in this way express this feeling as like, whatever, their new album was trash anyway. I always knew there was something off with them. Can we finally admit their last movie was garbage? Whoa, that's kind of a lot. This is very different from the romanticized version of the problematic fave we heard earlier. And that's because these are two different groups. Die-hard fans of someone will often find it much harder to let go. And it's okay to have complicated feelings. It's okay to feel confused. It's okay to even feel betrayed. But this is wrong. The art is not changed now. The album did not suddenly get worse. The movie is not now bad. The unfortunate reality is, bad people can make good art. Good people can make bad art. Don't pretend. The art remains unchanged. Your relationship to the content is what changed. Abusers can make good art. That's kind of the issue with abusers. People wouldn't stick around like they tend to do if their content wasn't undeniably of quality. Because quality is absolute. Quality is unwavering. And that's where the dilemma arises.
to buy me body.
In 2017, the rap group and boy band Brockhampton dropped 3 albums called the Saturation Trilogy. Oh my god, yes, we are so doing this. Solidifying themselves as one of the most exciting groups in rap at the time. They blew up out of nowhere and saturated the market with one banger after another. They marketed themselves with this trademark soft boy demeanor, who have feelings and treat women respectfully, and also gay. This was all really exciting stuff until just about 5 months after the trilogy concluded, when one of their band members was accused of all of the bad stuff. So they kicked him out of the group, took a few months off, and then continued making music. And this is completely subjective, but I believe they dropped legitimately one of their best albums of all time directly after this. And it didn't have him on it. But this ended up beginning their slow demise, as half their fans demanded the reinstatement of this former member, and the other half criticized even the slightest association. And this haunted them for the rest of their career. So, let's talk about it. Does this ruin the art? I mean, the face of an alleged abuser is plastered all over the cover of these 3 albums. I mean, he is inseparable from the success of the band during this time. The art stayed the same, but I wouldn't fault you if your relationship to it changed, though that didn't seem to be an issue for most Brockhampton fans. A very vocal minority, up until even the last few minutes of the band's existed, were still demanding the return of Amir. Why Amir will soon be Kevin Abstract's nightmare. Me when I'm very smart. Me when I'm just so good at media criticism. Me personally, those are some of my favorite albums of all time, so, you know, I'm still listening, but that's one of those instances where I can enjoy media while still being critical of its more pernicious aspects. Because I'm like literally Anita Sarkeesian. I'm like literally the modern day Anita Sarkeesian. Oh my god, I'm so her. I am Gamergate. I'm doing Gamergate. I'm fucking doing it. Kim Petras is another artist that's come under fire in a very similar way. This for continuing to very prominently collaborate with Dr. Luke. He's a guy. I don't know. He's a guy. He's also someone accused of SA by none other than Kesha. So, this sucks, right? I just want to listen to music. I don't want to have to think about the ethics of the people that made it. And let me be clear, I by no means think every single artist or content creator has to be perfect in every single way. I'll cite this tweet by Savannah Brown. I don't want to live in a world where people have to constantly be worried by moral purity, which is why I hope throughout this video it's pretty clear that I'm dealing with a lot of black and white examples. We should all be on the same page that SA is bad and that guy sucks. Allegedly. However, it's a really important conversation to have, because when people start boycotting, it draws a line. And suddenly, no matter where you are in support of them, it becomes contentious. And this is where you kind of have to pause for a second and take into account more than just moral posturing. When it comes to Kim Petras, and even later on in this video, Kanye West, there is a really important thing to be said for the relationship their fans have to the specific minority groups they're a part of. Kim is very important to the trans community because she's so hot. The same way Kanye, despite all the things that have happened, he's still one of the best musicians to this very day. And I know what you're thinking. Mia, I just want to enjoy good things. Why do musicians have to be so problematic? God, if only there was a way to listen to my favorite problematic artists guilt-free. AI Part 2. They got them making songs now. I'm filming from an undisclosed location. If you saw my last video, you know how I feel about AI. I love this shit. I love it so much. Jamie, pull up another clip.
Hey there, Delilah, what's it like in New York City?
Our generation will be defined by this. True heroes, every single one of you. AI music presents a unique opportunity to infringe upon intellectual property rights like never before. I fucking love infringing on intellectual property rights. Yeah. Shit's so good. Sometimes I DMCA myself just like for fun, just to feel something, really. This is, in my view, the only way you can really enjoy artists in a guilt-free manner, unless, you know, you can separate the art versus the artist. God, I didn't know it was just that simple. Oh, we'll get to you. So does AI music absolve the moral issues one may feel when engaging in the art of a problematic figure? Well, some philosophy nerds may disagree, but in my view, yeah. You can't really expect much from people, and to me, if they're willing to circumvent regular avenues of consumption, good for them. If there was a more ethical way to indulge my newfound Chick-fil-A habit, I would. It's bad because it's true. It's really bad. Yeah, I know. But until then, I will await my induction into signature member status. I have a problem. Exterior, an empty street in an unknown country. We see a letter A with an arrow beneath it, painted on a wall. A dual passageway tunnel opens below. 2 trees in a relatively big cityscape. The caption: nice painting, right? Sure, it's not the best, but, you know, it's better than most people, I guess. Ha! You just enjoyed one of Hitler's artworks. Nice job, Brandon. You got me. Now, this is obviously a joke because it's so far extreme, but if taken seriously, it kind of demonstrates my point. Since the artist is someone universally hated and condemned for his actions, he is universally hated, right? It's universal, right? The art is now tainted. Your instinctual reaction is hopefully to be like, whoa, I probably shouldn't enjoy this thing. But you see now how if initially my reaction was of pure enjoyment, that would be pretty weird now. And it would be pretty telling if I continued to praise the qualities of the work. Because, you know, that would be a dog whistle. But fine. What if that's not what you believe? What if you're a true believer in the separation of the art versus the artist, a 5-star general in the rational debate war? Okay, fine. Let's talk about it. What problematic artists did you ban from your playlists?
Honestly, none. I separate the music from the person. If the musician has done something I don't agree with, I won't give them any money. But I learned a long time ago, super talented people are fucked up in some way.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Literally none, because they're problematic, as in outside behavior. My partner doesn't like me playing R. Kelly, but he has some fantastic tunes.
Jesus Christ.
Mainly the hip-hop artists. Hip-hop is very egocentric.
Quora Be Normal challenge. I think you're lying. I do. I really do. I think if you're a true fan of art and you tell me that you absolutely don't take into account the person that made the art within the full context of the artistic experience, I think you're a fucking liar. I do. But fine, let's say for the sake of good faith, rational interpretation, impartial discourse, bipartisan civil debate conversation, that you truly believe in the separation of the art versus the artist. To me, and this is just my opinion, feel free to write a paragraph in the comments, that feels like a cop-out. It feels like you enjoy the work of ultra-problematic figures, which is fine, that's totally valid, they're pretty good. I too have heard I Believe I Can Fly radio edit, or whatever. But the issue is I also believe victims. Thus, for me, I don't hear that song the same anymore. I physically can't enjoy it. This isn't some kind of protest for me, it just feels gross. But here's the thing, not everybody has that instinctual reaction in the same way that I do. And that's totally fine. Not everybody can be Mia Cole. Mia Cole's more of like a figment of your imagination kind of thing, right? Like not real, yet very real at the same time. It's like you're not here, but yet you are here at the same time, and you're scary. Stop looking at me. You know what I mean? It's totally fine to not have this reaction. I think appreciating music is good, actually. I know, hot take. But I'm still inclined to think this answer to the question is just a bit self-centered. You don't want to risk the experience being ruined for you. Thus, you rationalize it in your head as this faux rule of impartiality. It's like, I'm a conscientious objector. I'm just watching. Hey, whoa. I think consuming content critically is a skill many should learn, and blacklisting certain artists from playlists is not always the answer. It's certainly not something I'm against, but you know. The issue, I feel, is just that as humans, we're not very good at critically analyzing the media we consume, because we're told that our media consumption is our identity. So if you're living in a society,
She said the funny thing.
where your media consumption is God, how are you supposed to separate the art versus the artist without also rationalizing a problematic figure's bad behavior? Ever thought about that? You know, I've done a lot of thinking in this last year, and I've kind of come around to the term prodigy. But hold on, before we go any further, there's probably something we got to address. Is it bad to enjoy the work of these people at all? Like, when is it appropriate to stop supporting a content creator or artist? That's what I call a callback. And when is it okay to keep consuming the art but being critical of their actions? And also, what about reconciliation? Whatever happened to that? What cancel cultured?
I've been cancel cultured. Help me.
Everybody deserves a second chance, right? And how do you determine who gets to be forgiven? Don't worry, I promise we'll get to all of that. Just stick with me here. I promise I'm like so good. I'm super good actually. The people I'm talking to right now are just those who want to absolve all creators of any possible outside criticism. If you truly believe you can do that, look me right in my eyes. Look me right in my cold, dead eyes. Just hear me out. I fully understand where you're coming from. I too am worried about the future of Rick and Morty. But just hear me out. I need you to understand this. Art is a deeply personal experience. When you make it, you put a piece of your soul into it. You give yourself in a moment in time to those who choose to accept your gift. The greatest joy of any artist is for someone to sit down, relax, and give themselves fully to your art. In my view, it doesn't matter how much of you try to keep separate from the art. On this medium, we are all our art, and there's nothing you can do to change that. When you make a movie, write an album, put on a show, you, a real though intangible piece of you, become frozen in time and simultaneously constantly updating in perpetuity throughout the living memory and actions of yourself. What I'm trying to say is, he did a little more than just make graduation. Now don't you worry, my dear viewer, I did my due diligence for this video. I have now watched every single one of Jonah Hill's movies, and I can confirm I'm still not anti-Semitic. The guy works wonders, frankly. So this is not a video about Kanye. That is a complex and difficult situation to handle, and I am probably not the best person to do it. The situation is simply not mine to deconstruct. But what I will say, you have to be insanely good, inordinately of quality, and unequivocally talented to do all of this and still have people supporting you. And you know what? He absolutely is. This is beautiful. This is transcendent art. It takes the unfortunate reality of his position and juxtaposes it with this pure, unadulterated, dare I say, holy artistic experience. Art is deeply personal, and given everything that's happened in the last few years, seeing this makes you want, or just necessitates the cleansing of the actions that led him here. But it can't. At least, never fully. It is yet another example of the deeply personal nature of art, and how, once again, problematic people make amazing things. But at what point is it ruined? You see, everyone has a personal moral line, one at which the intersection between creator and behavior meet. And in the process of planning and writing this video, I actually changed how I feel about this dynamic cutoff point. I don't think it's merely a line. I think it's more of like a sliding spectrum. To illustrate this, let's draw a basic line graph. This is gonna go very well for me. Let's do it. As a figure gets more problematic, the quality of their art must also go up. We'll call that good, because you gotta be good. So this is behavior, and this is the quality of their work that justifies said behavior. Say you're like a linebacker, you kill 2 people. It's like, well, you know, you're pretty good. Kill a 3rd person though, it's like, okay, you didn't get that many catches, you know what I mean? Do linebackers catch? I don't fucking, okay. This is the most basic view of the problem. However, I think due to the romanticization of problematic content, it kind of looks a bit more like this. Yeah. This looks right? This is good, this is good. A curved slope with exponential growth, but I didn't draw that right. So it looks like this. As the greater parasocial attachment strengthens, the bar must raise. Though, as shown here, there is a point where behavior outdoes quality. This is kind of like economics, except you don't make any money and you're miserable all the time. It's kind of like economics. You ever typed KYS in a business email? It's fun. So, where's your line? How do you justify the actions of certain figures? Do you justify them at all? And now that you have all of that figured out for yourself, what happens when that figure dies? It's like, what happens then? What do you do? Does that change it? Like what does that mean? This brings up an important question about the philosophy of problematic content. Is the question one of ethics or social and financial status? Is the issue of consuming problematic media based off the moral belief that art is intrinsically tied to the creator? Or am I talking like a fucking nerd again? Or is it more framed in the general mindset of a boycott? Not supporting a problematic figure due to the responsibility of not adding to their notoriety, i.e. still enjoying the creator's content, but, you know,
maybe pirating the next album. The distinction between these two mindsets is subtle, but I think it's fascinating. The outcome may be the same, but the belief system is entirely different. And if you really think about it, if you're one of those people who tries to have some kind of like moral consciousness while consuming art, you might have done both. I think Kanye's music is fucking amazing. I'm like not listening to it right now, but I think it's really good. Whereas it's hard for me to really even enjoy Michael Jackson's music, for example. The outcome is the same. I'm not listening to either, but I'm doing it for different reasons. This question also matters because it greatly affects how we treat an artist after their death. As if you're in the moral responsibility category, you'd still not be listening to it, whereas if you're in the boycott category, your boycott is over. They're not profiting from it anymore, go ahead. Michael Jackson also being a really popular example for this. If you're in the boycott category, the argument to be made is that what's done is done. And now that he's gone and he's no longer benefiting from it, the family is, should they be punished for his misdeeds? Or is it that he's still attached to the art through the piece of his soul that's embedded inside of it? I personally am more inclined to follow the logic of the latter argument as somebody who makes art myself, or at least tries. I'm trying. But I also understand the former argument. I understand it enough, in fact, to know that people who follow that line of logic probably have the same values as me. Thus, I wouldn't fault anybody for approaching this ever-complex issue in that specific way, because I think it's still a valid argument, even though I personally don't think that way. I'm not a big fan of infighting. I think the whole point of civil debate is for specific wedge issues inside broader conversations. They can be interesting and thought-provoking to focus on. However, genuine group discourse is not the same as drawing dividing lines within wider conversations that actually require some sense of harmony. So, feel free to apply that to whatever. I don't know. Let's see what happens. You see, the romanticization of problematic content is most easily projected onto properties of the past, as you'll see later in the thesis of this video, if it ever ends. It could just not. Honestly, it might just not. Please, for the love of God, make it end. In viewing past media, I do think there is some kind of specific cultural context to keep in mind. Asterisk, 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 asterisk. I do think that line of logic can be abused to justify poor behavior. Because if you learned anything from this video, it's that you can't have anything. Get out. You are entitled to nothing except death. You will die. The thing about the past is, it does this funny thing. This is where the phrase "a product of its time" comes from, and I hate it, I hate it, I hate it. Because it takes the real nuanced conversation that we could be having about social acceptability in the past and how we perceive things and throws it out the window like a little baby, like a little garbage baby that you throw out the window because you're like, ew, garbage baby, get out of here, ew, you're so gross, get out of here. And that's how it's used to justify unacceptable behavior. I know we did blackface, but it was a different time. It was 2010. Oh, we'll get to you. So no, you can't just write off your attachment to problematic figures. You gotta critically analyze not just the content, but also your attachment to it. You gotta take it for what it is. You gotta pick it up. You gotta look at it. You gotta really look at it. You gotta take it in its full context, in everything. You critically analyze it. Is the media good with underlying pernicious aspects? Or are you drawn to those aspects? Do you feel a need to hide your attachment to it? Are you afraid to tell people specifically what about the content you're drawn towards? Was it really a different time? Was the apology really genuine? Do you actually separate the art from the artist? Or are you just not ready to let go? I know a lot of this sounds holier than thou and morally absolutist, but I'm in the same boat as you. 'Cause if I'm honest, I'm not ready to let go either. None of us are. When will we ever truly be ready? We're human beings. We're not good at saying goodbye. In Schulman's book, she talks about the duty to repair within community. And more pointedly, she talks about shunning, which is like the normie version of cancel culture.
We are required by decency to ask the complainant and the accused how they understand the situation. Discussion will reveal if they are blaming, scapegoating, or punishing the other.
Okay, maybe Joe Rogan is undermining my point a little bit. Still though, that always gets in my head. Often when public figures are forced to apologize, especially through the reductive means of social media, people tend not to believe them or view it as ingenuine, or the public figure is blatantly dishonest and refuses to elaborate or accept any kind of responsibility. There is no reasonable dialogue here. We engage in shunning for the sake of shunning, without any regard for the real people involved. It's important to hold people accountable, but are we perhaps a little too liberal with our use of this power? Just like a little bit. Like, don't come for me. We're on the same side. Maybe. I don't know. We're still seeing how this goes. You know, it keeps me holding out hope. I still think she can change. I still think he will get better. I still hope she'll drop him. I still want him to learn to shut the fuck up. I believe they can change, perhaps rather foolishly. I continue to hold out hope and see the good in people. But what I can't do
is expect it. I'm under no illusions, and you shouldn't be either. I think what we have to do is recognize something very important within ourselves, something we perhaps aren't ready to accept. So it's at this point in the script where there is supposed to be some kind of beautiful montage of some drone footage I got of some abandoned shipwrecks, commenting on the beauty of how the past and the present contrast in nature, or some other bullshit. But unfortunately, while getting that footage, I actually ended up losing my drone in the woods across the lake. To see the full story of the 6-hour reconnaissance mission that ensued, including exclusive harrowing footage of me in a kayak I had never used before on the verge of popping in the middle of a not so safe to swim in lake, you can sign up to patreon.com/miacole to see not only that, but 2.5 hours of other exclusive extra bonus content over there. Patreon support is the only reason I'm able to reliably fund all of this and also attempt to make somewhat of a living. So please, if you're interested and you can, feel free to check that out. Okay, pretend it's 30 seconds ago and I just said that dramatic ass line. Something we aren't ready to accept. Yeah, I'm pretty good at this shit. We're all problematic. Every single one of us. We all have skeletons in our closet, and the farther you run from the truth, the faster it catches up to you. Because you see, the past, it does this funny thing. We're all problematic. It's true. It's the nature of being human. The desire to grow and change and become better. Bipartisan and escapable cringe. That's what I believe in. Cringe is good, actually. You run from it, but it'll always find you. Cringe always finds a way. If you're not embarrassed of your past, how do you know you've grown? It's a natural part of life. We've all made shitty jokes we regret. We've all had opinions we wish we could forget. We've all made problematic YouTube videos that we occasionally find on our hard drive and then feel a wave of existential anxiety wash across us. Right? No? Confession number 1. Yeah, remember when I said I was gonna do that? God, that was like forever ago, wasn't it? One time, in my continuous endeavor to adapt new content styles and stuff, TM, always be on that hustle, always be on that grind, I made a video, and I cannot stress enough how wild this is, called Reviewing Your Religions. Reviewing your religion. I'll give them a score. Here's the thing that bothers me about this. It's trying so hard to be edgy, but in the actual video itself, I'm still being myself. I don't actually want to offend anybody. It wants the aesthetic of being edgy without actually achieving any of it. In a word, it's disappointing. Maybe try harder next time. We all have a past that we're not proud of. That's part of mine. What's part of yours? Comment down below. Put your vulnerable life stories in the comments. I'll make sure to give them a heart. I am by no means perfect, and I don't claim to be. And I hope nobody expects me to be. I hope when I make mistakes, people will see I have no ill intent. I hope they give me the benefit of the doubt, and I hope they understand that I'm trying my best. And now, I'm kind of stuck here, because this is not super relatable. I imagine your struggles with problematic content are collectively less with like internal embarrassment and more of external disappointment, but who knows? Twitter's been around for a while. I don't know. Maybe we're all fucked. Maybe you're next. Social media is a very powerful tool that I think we've all misused deeply. Maybe we can all come together and bond over our collective anxieties. Nevertheless, I'll get off the subject. I'm a good YouTuber. I know what the people want. I'm super relatable. I know we all get our Patreon checks at the first of the month and then blow it all on Chick-fil-A. I'm just like the rest of you. I'm pretty normal. In the time it took me to write this video, I did in fact achieve my signature status. I'm going insane. Anyway, all of this is to say I now know that we've had all of the relevant conversation to finally tackle the content that you've all been waiting for, the very reason you clicked on this video. I'm finally ready to talk about the 2005 CBS original sitcom, How I Met Your Mother. Our story begins in 2005. I'm a trashy little baby with like zero cognitive ability and relatively slim knowledge about the complexities of hookup culture in New York City in the early 2000s. Fast forward about 9 years and I am in the 4th grade. So it's safe to say I know what I'm doing at this point.
I am eating a sandwich.
And I am a huge fan of How I Met Your Mother. It was funny, it was grown up, it had a gay guy. And I thought that was really cool. I was a pretty woke elementary schooler. But for real, I absolutely loved this show. It really meant a lot to me, and every time I hear the theme song, I still kind of get like chills to this day. It brings back memories of growing up and feeling happy and blissful. Just a different time in life. I'm sure there's a word for that. What I'm trying to say is, the show meant a lot to me. And that's why it hurts so much going back and watching it. Who knew the portrayal of women in a show created by 2 guys in 2005 would be somewhat not good?
I'm shocked, absolutely perplexed. And even more overtly, the amount of bigotry in the show is insane. From the casual usage of slurs to the hostility of femininity in men, and the ongoing joke throughout the entire show that Ted Mosby, the main character, is afraid of being tricked. And that's all terrible. That's all really bad. That's not good. However, when I first heard about this, my initial instinct was to push it away. I said to myself, I says, hey, that doesn't mean it's endorsed. Characters can be flawed. Can characters not be flawed anymore? If a murder is depicted on TV, does that mean the show condones murder? Sometimes bad behavior is supposed to be glorified for art's sake, but not actually endorsed. Is the audience supposed to be on the main character's side 100% of the time? Uh-oh, media literacy time. So the reason I called you here is to discuss media literacy on the internet.
Real.
Specifically, my question to you is, how do you know if a piece of scripted media is actively endorsing a problematic element displayed within it?
Let me think about this, hold on.
Like, when is bad behavior endorsed by a TV show versus just portrayed in it?
I think that people are really focused on knowing 100% with certainty what behavior is endorsed and not endorsed by a piece of media. And I think that can lead to some bad sort of spirals, rabbit holes in terms of sort of cultural dogmatic thinking. And I wrote down some points. When you told me the topic of the video, I wrote down some points of the movies that came to mind. The first one is from, I guess, late 90s, Mary Harron's adaptation of the novel American Psycho, which is to say that a lot of people who initially reviewed the book and a lot of people who initially reviewed the movie misconstrued it as like a misogynistic tirade. In fact, it's completely the opposite of that. It's supposed to sort of construct this very pathetic, dweebish, loser businessman who just is nothing. He's just a total alien to the world. The fact that something is glamorizing something that's not very good, or that a piece of media is endorsing something that's not great, doesn't mean that you can't engage with it. I feel like a lot of people have fallen into this sort of trap of like engagement at all with this media is losing. Sometimes you're going to be able to tell, sometimes you won't be able to tell. Sometimes being able to tell makes the movie worse, sometimes not being able to tell makes the movie better, but sometimes it makes it horrifyingly uncomfortable. With media, you're trying to engage with an incredibly dense piece of work that people have spent thousands of hours on. And it's easy to think at the end of all of that, well, of course they must have chosen some moral right to convey. But I don't think that's always the case, and I don't think they're always thinking about that.
It is tough. Like, I'm watching Euphoria. I'm thinking to myself, you know what? Maybe more minors should be doing coke. I'm watching Breaking Bad going, write that down, write that down.
Yeah.
So in the case of How I Met Your Mother, I heard about its problematic aspects. I saw the parts of it I didn't want to see. This doesn't ruin my experience with the art. I could be critical of the media I love, but instead I felt attacked, and I pushed it away. Attacked. What an interesting word for that feeling, right? Because I wasn't attacked. Nobody did anything to me. My perception of a thing I loved was challenged. Why do I feel attacked?
There's definitely this sort of ongoing misogynistic, gross undertone to the whole show that wasn't really detected because it was all told through jokes.
This is kind of the core of everything we've talked about so far. Defending something or someone we love because we feel victimized. In one corner, people feel betrayed and lash out at the figure or creation that disappointed us. Cancel culture, quality, parasocial betrayal. And in the other corner, when you just can't accept that reality, you lash out at others who brought it to your attention. You feel shame, you feel embarrassed, and you can't accept that. The art versus the artist. Because the things we love, the things we attach to, become part of us. Consume more, watch more, spend more. The things you like are yours. The things you like are part of your identity. This has a special place in your heart. We have a special place in your heart. Is that what you want? So, if you're still with me, why, God, why, after all of this, do we romanticize problematic media? And most importantly, what did Shane Dawson do to his cat? So, I was a Shane Dawson fan. Shane is a YouTuber who a few years ago got himself in one of the worst cancellations I've ever seen in internet history. It was a chaotic downfall of past and present actions coming together to create something. Whatever it was, it shocked the internet. Mega canceled. Millions of people watched this man's entire career collapse in front of their very eyes. It was truly spectacular, but like in a car on fire on the side of the road kind of way. So, a quick recap. Part 1, racism. Lots of it. Lots of racism. I'm talking like blackface, like it's genuinely wild. Part 2, lies. Shane joins the beauty community as an amateur documentarian, starts a lot of drama, and then makes off with millions of dollars. Now that's how you do it. Part 3, minors. Whoops. Past videos of Shane being a freaky, weird little man. It was genuinely disgusting and awful, and I can't cleanse my brain of them. All of these past transgressions and more all came together in like this fiery tailspin of a downfall that the internet all collectively gawked at for like weeks. And in this scenario, I do genuinely mean cancellation. The discrepancy in these view counts are by orders of magnitude. Holy shit, look at that graph. So the impetus for this video was one day I got curious and wanted to see what he was up to. Last I heard, he was in a manic frenzy yelling at a makeup guru on his TV, so, you know, I went to check up on the guy. And as it turns out, he was back. Shane made his return to a very dedicated, very close group of Shane Dawson fans. It takes a special kind of person to look past some of these things. Now, I am absolutely somebody who believes in reconciliation. You know, I believe in reparative justice. I think everybody deserves a second chance. Like at some point, I don't know if you come back from that, man. That's tough. Yikes. Your problematic fave just committed a hate crime. What could possibly drive someone to let all of this slide? Well, there's only one place to find out. I ventured my way in to the Shane Dawson comment section. Oh dear God, the horrors that I've seen. Ladies and gentlemen, and you people, the reason for all of this.
I don't even care what you'll have to say. These videos are really entertaining.
Who else misses Shane and wants the conspiracy theories back?
I'm pretending he wasn't canceled, because these vids are bomb AF.
I DGAF if he's canceled. This man raised me.
I've never been so ashamed to miss a YouTuber as much as I miss Shane.
I miss Shane. Yes, I was disappointed on him, but I don't hate him because I'm not a cancel cultured asshole who keeps on hating on someone that wants to change. Why do they forgive Shane? Because he reminds them of where they were last time they watched him. In other words, nostalgia. I get it. I absolutely get it. And I empathize with it. And I imagine anyone else watching this can as well. Nostalgia gets you. It changes your perception and it feeds off the romanticization of the past. Why does it feel so good? It's human nature. We love this feeling. We eat it up. And for what? Is it a cope? Oh God, is it a cope? About 3 or 4 years ago, I was going through a really hard time for a variety of reasons. I was really anxious. I was severely depressed. I was exhausted, and it felt like there was truly no way out. Honestly, it felt like I couldn't handle it anymore. Like I'd hit a breaking point. Now, sitting here before you today, I don't just consider my depression alleviated. I consider it 100% gone. Like, I'm just cured. I am so happy every single day. I'm really happy to have made it through all that. Every day I wake up, I feel happy. I feel at peace. The power of medication and changing my surroundings did wonders. And I promise I have a reason for saying all of this, but before I go any further, I just want to address anybody else who feels that way, the way that I felt. It 100%, it gets better. 100%. You'll make it through, I promise. You got this. You got this. Now, why do I say all this? Well, to this very day, I still regularly go back and purposefully seek out those places, those physical places that I was at when I felt that way. And every time I'm there, I feel so happy. Like, I'm overwhelmed. And that's not because I have, beaten depression or whatever. It's truly just the power of nostalgia. It completely changed my self-perception and the way I feel that I felt at that time. And somehow, by the simple act of revisiting that place, I have revised history, as if I'm painting over the bad times. Nostalgia can be anything: a place, a song, a movie, a content creator. And though I strongly dislike the tacit dismissal of Shane's past actions and the real harm done, I do at least understand the feeling that these people are chasing. They're chasing a feeling I think we all want to feel in some way. And so it's hard for me to fault them for that. Like I said, nostalgia affects everyone. It romanticizes the past. It fuels our ambitions. It excites us in a way that we can't always adequately describe. So my only question now is, how does it affect you?
Nostalgia to me is like impressionistic memory. It's not just remembering something in the past, but it's remembering all the things you felt about that particular past and like the emotion it evokes in you. It's weird to answer that question because to describe the feeling of nostalgia, I guess I have to give you my own nostalgia. I feel like I've been more nostalgic now than I have been earlier in my life, like when I was in university, because now I spend more time than I thought I would being nostalgic about the time that I spent in university. I realized how much I enjoyed the person that I was when I was like in the middle of college, and you know, sometimes I just want to go back there. I could be wrong.
Not the flowers, no. Okay. Number 1, cancel culture, while good in concept, often lends itself to a lot of dogpiling and online harassment. I'd caution you to be careful with how you choose to interact with it, as well as others who also frequently use it as a means of control. Number 2, quality. It's good. Though it is absolute, it can be dubious. Sometimes things will be good, but like for the wrong reasons. And when analyzing media, not only should you ask yourself if you're enjoying something, but rather, why? Number 3, in separating the art versus the artist, remember that a lot of artists still do have a stake in how their art is perceived in the public eye. If you're boycotting something, boycott it for real. And if you're not, don't consume it in secrecy. Number 4, confront the fact that you are a real person with like flesh and blood. You have a real life and a past you may also not be as proud of. Engage in discourse empathetically and acknowledge the fact that your potential anonymity on the internet can be weaponized for evil and good, and how you choose to use that power is really just your defining characteristic. It defines who you are. What are you good or are you bad? Just choose one. Villain or not? Are you villain? No. Stop it. Number 5, the past. It does this funny thing. Nostalgia comes for us all. Feel free to indulge, but also moderation is good. As a great philosopher once said, just take half. Number 6, learn to let go. People, believe it or not, will disappoint you. And occasionally it's even necessary to reevaluate their very position in your life. It's really hard, but I think it's worth it. Number 7, forgiveness is valuable and reform is good. People change. Think about where you were 5 years ago. That's like a completely different person. I don't even know them. Who the fuck is that? Growing and changing is good, actually. Confession number 3, I've grown and changed a lot. I used to have a lot of opinions I'm not too proud of. Now I don't have those opinions. Now I'm more proud of my opinions. And I've had to learn that's okay. Expecting perfection from yourself and the people around you, and especially not the public figures, not feasible. You will only be disappointed. The world is not black and white. It's 50 Shades of Grey, like the movie. Part 7, 50 Shades of Grey, the movie. Life is Jamie Dornan. You're Dakota Johnson. You have to decide whether you're Dakota Johnson from movie 1, 2, or 3. So, where to go from here? You know what? I think I know a place.